All right. So just for the interest of time, we're just going to jump right back in. So our next speaker is Sandra Collins from UCD. Sandra is a university librarian at UCD, and she is originally a mathematician and was previously the director of the National Library of Ireland, the founding director of the Digital Repository of Ireland in the Royal Irish Academy, a scientific program manager in SFI, a master engineer in Ericsson Telecommunications, and a mathematics lecturer at DCU. So her talk is titled, The Role of Libraries in Research Culture. And I'd like to invite you to please join me in welcoming Sandra.
So thanks very much. I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to be here today, and I have really enjoyed the talks. And one of the things I think that is going to carry into my talk as well is the commonality of themes and the positive approach to finding ways to enhance our research culture. So what I'm going to do is talk about the role that libraries can play in making a positive research culture, and illustrate it with some examples of services and activities that we're doing in the UCD library. And I'll also point out some areas as we gallop along that need more work in the future as well. Okay, so the topics that I'm picking out for research culture in the context of libraries are open research, open access publishing, research data management, research evaluation, integrity, and I'll wrap up with digital literacy. So how do we approach this in UCD libraries? So these are our principles of how we work, putting the researcher at the centre. So it's very much a co-creation approach. It's collegiate and collaborative as well, I hope, with campus partners and other stakeholders. So the questions that we're talking about today are really systemic questions, aren't they? So they're really wide, community-wide endeavours to change. We want to empower researchers through research skills, education and training, so that's the support and advocacy work. EDI, so we've talked already about equality, diversity and inclusion and centering those in the services and collections. And then communication, so that's a two-way street, isn't it? It's listening to understand what the researchers need, what we need to do, and then communicating and communicating again to change perceptions. So I'm going to start with open research and open access publishing. And I probably don't need to say any of this. You're already convinced of the benefits of this or you wouldn't be here. But let's have a look. I like this picture. So it's the Centre for Open Science Strategy for Culture and Behaviour Change. And that's really essential to change culture, isn't it? So the top of the triangle is a very powerful place to be. And I think I'd place our funders there and policymakers, government, maybe even our research performing organisations themselves. And the libraries are in the layers nearer the bottom. They're very important, but they are working with communities to effect change. So the sort of things that libraries work to do is to make it normative, to make it easy, and to make it possible. Okay, so I said we don't need to talk about open research because we all agree in it, but I might just take a moment to recap why are we doing this? So improves transparency and reproducibility, increases access to research and increases the transfer of knowledge. It's greater visibility for researchers. It's we've talked about this, the public benefits for publicly funded research. It's about economic and societal benefits. The importance of sharing the other research outputs, data code, in order to create that culture of research integrity. And it increases public trust in science through greater transparency. And that really has been challenged over the last few years, hasn't it, around the world? So we can't overlook how important that is. And then in support of interdisciplinarity, everybody has access to materials and content in their own discipline, but interdisciplinarity depends on that wider range of access to research. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about open access publishing and particularly a focus on what's possible in Ireland through IRL open access publishing agreements. So we've said why open access publishing is important, why it's important to be able to read and access this material, but let's talk a little bit about one of the ways in which authors can engage in open access publishing. So it's clear that there's a significant cost to open access publishing, however we cut the pie into different pieces. So IRL, which is our national, it's the Irish e-resource library, provides this service. So it facilitates this broader impact and the citation advantage through greater visibility and access. That's the open accessing publishing. And it gives us more fair and more equitable opportunities to publish in open access, and particularly thinking on an inclusive measure. So if you are not currently in receipt of a grant that provides you with funding for open access publishing, or your institution doesn't support it, there have to be other ways to do this. So IRL provides access to many of the major publishers, which are in measures of prestige and important to researchers, thinking of Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, Springer, I could go on. So those are very well-known names for the research community. It also provides access to publishing agreements in a broader range as well. So it's supporting bibliodiversity through agreements with perhaps lesser known publishers or non-profit publishers and learned societies. So there's an example of what we're talking about there, and some of those you would recognise very well. Indeed, we are here in the Royal Irish Academy. So what does this look like and what impact does it have? So the agreements, IRL negotiated these agreements with the publishers that we've just looked at the logos and the names of. And these agreements came into place in 2020. And are they having an impact? Are they important? So that's a very short trajectory. And of course, we've all been hit with COVID during that period as well. The agreements commence in 2020 with 997, and then you can see this big growth rate. So they're being taken up and they're important, and that is a part of opening up our publishing. Then UCD Library, recognising the needs of our research community, particularly things, particular strengths and areas of interest in UCD, adds to the IRL open access publishing agreements with additional UCD level agreements. So IRL is national, so it's for all the institutions, the Irish academic libraries that are a part of IRL, and then institutions are able to add to that as well. So that's an important conversation to have with the research community in the institution, that there are additional journals and outlets, avenues that are important for the research interests. And this is really important. So there are a number of different routes that you can publish open access. It may be you are paying the publisher to provide free open access to your article. It may be that the journal provides that, your grant mandates it, your funder mandates it, or you may go through these open access publishing agreements. And what we have done is pulled all the options together and promote them in our library guide for researchers, so that they can make an informed decision about where they want to put their research and the benefits then of it being more open. So in working through these, as I say, it's started in 2020, so we are still, it's a growth area, and we're still working through how best to implement it and support researchers with it. So the library carried out a survey, and we did it with around the 25 open access agreements that the UCD Library provides. And we conducted the survey at the point at which the author has just been accepted and will be published under one of the open access agreements. So we're thinking it's the point where the author is the most engaged with the process and can see the benefits of it. So the series of questions here asked to the researchers, so were you aware of open access agreements before starting the journey? Where did you learn about them? What publisher did you use? Why did you pick that publisher? Was it clear what you were, was the open access deal clear on the publisher's platform? And would you have done it this way if the open access agreement wasn't available? I hope that I explained what the open access agreement is. I just realised I galloped into it. So just to clarify, that is a process by which, for a journal that would not otherwise provide open access publication without a fee, that the agreement is negotiated at a national level by IREL, and then there are a number of opportunities for researchers to avail of this ability to publish in a journal where otherwise you might have to pay and to do it for free. And you work through your library to support you with that. So here's the survey findings. Were you aware of open access agreements when you were making your decisions? So very strong yes. Was the process clear from the publisher's website? Yes. Was the choice of journal influenced by whether the open access agreement was available or not? And that's more mixed, isn't it? So it is not as clear that the open access agreement was influencing the choice of journal. So perhaps researchers are going back to prestige journals or measures and metrics that feed into the traditional career progression. And then the question, without the open access agreement, would you still have opted to publish open access? And an answer, a clear no there, that is not a uniform yes. So I suppose we still, I read from this that the open access agreements are important, but there is more work to do to highlight the value of open access publishing. So we conducted the survey to ask ourselves, what can we do differently? What can we do better? How can we help? This is a wonderful facility for researchers. I mean, it doesn't change the overall for-profit nature of the publishing industry, but this is a useful contribution to achieve open access for publications. So these are the factors then to look forward to, and in the qualitative feedback in the survey, these were the things that came up. The APC allocation, so the number of people that can avail of the open access publishing agreement is capped, and it can be fuzzy in the system to know whether you have made it into the number that can be published open access or not. Researchers said they would like more journals included in it. They would like to extend the scope of the agreements, and I think it's important for us to continue to work with early career and new researchers to raise awareness of this. Okay, so those are the actions. That's what we took out of the survey. Continue to raise awareness. Think about that as we are working on our communication channels, and that's through all the traditional and social media ways of engaging. Okay, and if you didn't make it into an open access publishing agreement, if that wasn't an option, I suppose to stress that institutional repositories generally maintained and grown and held in the institutional libraries are a really important alternative or a post-publication option. There is always a way, and there is no fee or no cost to authors or readers in the institutional repositories. So really important amplification of research, also preprint repositories and so on. So stressing the value of those. Okay, so research data management, we've talked on this a little before, but I am absolutely delighted now to be able to talk about why it's important and highlight some of the ways in which the academic libraries are approaching this and talk about what we're doing in UCD. So the benefits of research data management, why do you want to do this? Because it is a lot of work. It's about increased quality assurance. So it is about getting your data safely. So you have efficiency of the research, you have security, and you're reducing the risk of data loss. It can be about compliance with funder requirements. That's really important. We've seen the ability that funders have to make change happen. Reproducibility, we talked about secondary research, also research integrity, validation of results. And ideally, what you would really want is that the data is reused by other researchers. So interdisciplinarity, secondary research, and wider dissemination and impact from what is a large part of the work of carrying out research. Okay, and the work, we are guided by supporting UCD's research data management policy. It's been really useful to have that policy, and I think combined institutional policies about research data management and funder policies about research data management are really essential to create change, to generate, to motivate, incentivize and reward the work that it takes to produce quality data and to preserve it and provide access to it. So UCD's RDM policy centres around best international practice and compliance, and it's a broad, it's a strong policy for what we want to see happen. Okay, so we have Jenny already mentioned research data management, and she is our research data management manager in the UCD library, and I'll just flag some of our key established and service development priorities. That is enhancing training and one-to-one support for researchers, including bringing in new and early career researchers in order to build up that support for career development and build capacity. Something that we've had great success with is the DMP Online. So this is a suite of products and services that you can subscribe to and modify and personalise, customise to the needs of the community you're providing this service to. And this has been really valuable for us and for UCD. Something we're working on is community of practice. So there's a lot of dedicated expertise and interest across an institution, bringing it together for sharing of information and to expand that network effect so that it is not falling on the few to do the work of the many, but that we are building a family and building the influence. And then something specific is you need to have somewhere to put your data. So if you're working towards FAIR, you want it to be findable and accessible and so on, you need to have somewhere to put it where other people can access it. So we're working on a community practice around Zenodo, and also to flag the importance of disciplinary repositories, national repositories, agnostic repositories, international and multidisciplinary. So ISTA is an example. It's quantitative social science. There is also a qualitative social science data archive, which is housed in UCD and then feeds into the international CESTA network as well. So the disciplinary repositories are an important service for research per discipline. Similarly, we run a digital library which has a lot of primary source material for humanities and social sciences. It's a rich repository of research data for research produced in UCD, but also in partnership with other institutions that may not maintain their own digital library. And I would add there as well the value of national digital libraries and repositories as well, such as the Digital Repository of Ireland, which has its headquarters here in the Royal Irish Academy. Okay, but I said I would also point to the things that need more work. So there is a growing need. Research data is just, we are really only getting started. This is just a highlight of a survey carried out by IT services in UCD. Question, what data do you have? You can see what is coming down the road here. Really complex, varied types of data. And then, so this is the sort of data types that we are talking about. What are you generating through your research? So it is really a broad range here. And what about scale? How much data are we talking about? So this is a slide which is sobering for what is coming towards us. So when you talk about reproducibility of that data, we're talking about a lot of complex digital objects here. Okay, so we also want to talk about responsible research evaluation. So this has been, I'm so happy to see the conversations we've had so far about this, because this would be, we are all singing off the same hymn sheet, aren't we? Something I'm really delighted to see launched just this month in UCD. It's this new website, Promote Your Research, and it brings together so many resources and pointers for researchers to promote their research. And that is a part of responsible research evaluation, isn't it? So I think we are all agreed on the need to rethink and co-create a fairer publishing ecosystem that rewards what we actually value, rather than goes with a traditional or a shortcut publish or perish approach. So Leiden Manifesto, really important to read. Sign Dora, you'll find the links to everything on the Promote Your Research website. So my wonderful colleague, Michelle Dalton, says this, and I love it. It is research that has impact, not journals. So that's, you know, we just rethink journals are a vector. They are like cigarettes. They convey. I'll say no more. Okay. And Kalpana also mentioned, you know, the nature of a profitable industry and the impact that has on the way we carry out research. So in APC, the cost to publish a single article in Nature can cost €9,500. Why are we paying this? Libraries are paying to provide you with access to the journals, and the wonderful experts and researchers in the room are providing the labour and the expertise for free. It's really hard to change this. So, okay, so what are the key principles to drive cultural change? Again, I'm so happy we're all on the same page, that research metrics can support, they don't supplant qualitative assessment, and that we are open and transparent about the research assessment procedures and criteria. We talked about that. Journal impact factors, initially designed as a way to sell journals to libraries, that it is a measure of why you should buy this journal. And now we shouldn't be using them as a shortcut for the quality of research. It's the individual research article that has the value. Recognise all the research outputs, find a place for data sets, software and other creative forms, policy training, and the role of EDI, the importance of incorporating EDI into that, whether that's career breaks, part-time working, underrepresentation, biases in the system, and as we said, perhaps a place for EDI statements in research evaluation. Okay, we talked about research integrity. That is so important. The role of libraries then is in providing support for that, providing guidelines. This is a really well-used resource in the library. I heard yesterday over 200,000 engagements with the plagiarism and other questionable research practices. So these are important things that libraries provide for researchers getting started. To flag the complexity of copyright licensing and ethical and legal reuse, I'm not going to try to describe that because I will only make a mess of it. It's a very complex area, and I suppose maybe the one key thing we would say is to advocate for authors to retain their rights where possible. That's really important, and funders can help that as well. Delighted to have seen these feature in the slides already, the importance of ORCID and researchers using it and funders using it. And just to stress again, something I think is lovely is this credit. It's the taxonomy of the different roles that feed into a research output. I think that is lovely, and it would be great to see more of that. Okay, so the last thing I want to flag is that we've talked about early career researchers and mid-career, but let's not forget the opportunity to impact the students, so to get future researchers as they get started. So an initiative that we're doing in UCD Library is digital literacy. We think it's essential to underpin research culture, and it starts really at first-year students. So it's a set of skills and competencies and attitudes. You can see really it's completely intertwined with research culture, and it's about helping and supporting collaboration, communication, the creation of research, digital presence and so on. This is a complex area, and it's only getting more complex. So this is just a snapshot of what we are trying to do in the UCD Library. This is available in Brightspace. It is open to, it's geared at students primarily, but I think myself, having looked at it, everybody would benefit from it. It talks about understanding your digital identity and practices, including in our research platforms. So things like ResearchGate, what rights are you giving away, who's reusing your data, when you're publishing, what are you also publishing as well as your research paper. So I think this is important and a growing area to make sure that we're embedding the tools for a positive research culture right from the start. So I finished. Thank you so much. I hope I have done justice to my wonderful colleagues that make all this possible in the UCD Library.
Thanks very much, Sandra. So in the interest of time, we only have time for one question, if that's okay, because we're a bit delayed after lunch. So if there's one question.
Hi, thanks very much. Aisling Coyne, I'm the Open Scholarship Librarian at TU Dublin. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but just really broadly. I guess what would you see the role of libraries in research? Would you see them as a support or a partner, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a little bit of both, I think. So I think a lot of where libraries come from is support, help, assistance, services. But I think more and more we need to think of it as a partnership. I think that's the way forward. And I think some really lovely partnership experiences for UCD Library, particularly with the research office, that has been hugely, very meaningful collaborations, including the Promote Your Research, and then the relationship with the researchers, both as users, but as producing everything that the library then serves. I just think that's so valuable. So, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. All right, so it is a pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Maria Cruz. Maria is a senior policy advisor at NWO, the Dutch Research Council. She is responsible for the NWO Research Data Management Policy and Open Science Fund. In March of this year, she was elected chair of the Science Europe Working Group on Open Science, and she holds a PhD in astrophysics and has 15 years of experience in science policy and in scholarly publishing and communication. Her talk is titled Research Culture and Open Research. So I invite you to please join me in welcoming Maria.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. It's been such an amazing day. Thanks for the invitation. I'm not sure I have a lot more to add to all that has been said today. I feel I'm going to repeat a lot, but I'm bringing the perspective from the Netherlands. Since we're not in the Netherlands, I'll start just by explaining what NVO is, the Dutch Research Council. I'm a policy advisor there in the area. I work in the area of open science. NVO is the main research funder in the Netherlands. We fund research at public research institutions. And we invest also in large-scale research facilities. And we are also research performing. We have 9 research institutes. So we're both a funder and a performer. And we also, for health research, we have an equivalent to the HRB. So we have a different, we work very closely together. It's called Zon en Vee. They fund, I think they work together with HRB Ireland as well. And just to give you an idea, just key figures from 2020, and these are, I was looking at the ones from 2021, but in 2021, well, we had COVID, and we also had a hack to our systems that actually put us out of operations for almost 2 months. So we weren't able to spend all the budget. So the figures from 2020 are a bit more representative of our usual expenditure. So we spend we fund research and research infrastructure to the tune of about 1 billion per year. We fund research staff across the country, just over 5,000 FTEs, deal with around 7,000 applications for funding every year, and we give around 1,200 awards. And at every given moment, we are managing about 7,000 research projects. So just in a nutshell, this is the Dutch Research Council. I wasn't sure how much we were going to talk about open science. I'm not sure this slide is needed because we heard a lot about open science, open research. I think in some countries, open research is the preferred term because it's more encompassing. But the UNESCO recommendation of open science talks about open science, and I'm using here that definition, where open science is an inclusive construct that combines various movements. It includes all the disciplines applied, and basic, the natural science, social sciences, humanities. So by using the term open science, I'm referring to all of the disciplines. And UNESCO, in the definition from UNESCO, open science rests on these 4 pillars: open scientific knowledge, open science infrastructures, open engagement of social actors, and open dialogue with other knowledge systems. So it's a very, very broad concept and movement. In my work at NVO, we are really focused. I mean, we act in other areas of those pillars that I just mentioned. But in my work, when we're talking about open science, we're really talking about the opening up of scientific knowledge. This is the definition, is actually in our strategy. We think about it as a collaborative research practice where research scholarly knowledge is made available, openly available at the earliest possible stage for use and reuse across disciplinary, social, and national boundaries. So that's how we think about open science at NVO. So I'm really, we do a lot around research culture at NVO. I could be, speaking, well, we heard Sean and Maura, it's huge. So I'm going to focus mainly on open. I'm going to talk a little bit about other work we do in the area of research culture, but it's going to really be about open science, which is the area where I operate. And so we have, as other funders in Europe, we have policies aimed at ensuring that publicly funded research outputs are as open as possible for the benefit of science and society. And that's why we're committed to open science. We just heard from Sandra why this is important and that's the reason why we are committed to it, because we think it will lead to benefits for science and society because it leads to reliable, reproducible, and transparent research, which hopefully increases the trust in research, leads to knowledge sharing and innovation. So, by investing in research projects, we hopefully are, maybe investing also in economic growth through innovation. And, by funding research, we hope that will lead to more research, opportunities for collaboration. So we want the money that is spent on research to keep on giving as much as possible. And We do this through grant requirements. We just heard from Sandra about and I'm so happy that Sandra, you talked a lot about, because I don't have time to talk in detail about open access publishing and research data management. But yeah, we make requirements since 2009 that all publications need to be available open access immediately upon publication, and we require researchers to carefully manage all research data generated as part of NVO-funded projects. And I must say, in the Netherlands, we do rely on the libraries and the brilliant work done by professional support staff at the institutions to support researchers. And we invest also in capacity within the institutions. We have been funding data stewardship quite heavily in the Netherlands. So we make these requirements, we try to support researchers, but it's a lot, actually. That's why I put all of this here. We realize we're making, yeah, it's a lot. We ask researchers to do a lot. Publish open access, manage your data, make it open, fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. We're also now trying to expand to open source software. We're also working in this area. It's a lot that we're asking researchers. This is from a paper titled How Open Science Helps Researchers Succeed, and it's a paper that takes a more research-centric approach to highlight the benefits of open science. And as you've seen, open science funder open science policies are motivated by ethical, moral, or utilitarian arguments, right? So it's about research is funded with public funds, so everyone should have access to the literature. This is, very important. But then there's when this meets researchers and researchers' behavior, researchers, of course, they also believe in higher ideals, but they have to deal with career progression. And I've worked in research support, I've worked in libraries before, so I've talked a lot with researchers trying to persuade them of the values of open science. But of course, researchers will tell you, I have no time for this, I don't have support, this is a lot of work. So there's barriers, and there's this perception that, that open practices can present a risk to career advancement. And this is a slide that you've seen before by Sean presented. I adapted it. It's adapted from a presentation given by Noémie Aubert-Bon at ISOF this summer. So there's a mismatch between what's needed for career success and the success for the research system as a whole. For the system, for society, we need quality, we need valid, reproducible findings, we need collaborations, we need to solve problems, and to solve important problems, we need a diversity of skills and talent, of knowledge to come together. And we need open sharing of resources and results, we need transparency. So that's what's needed for collective success. But for individual success, and I was trained as a researcher myself, and as I was introduced, I worked in science published for a long time. And of course, the incentive is publish as much as possible, publish lots of papers, and if possible, have a breakthrough that you can put in Nature or Science or another high-impact journal that it's important in your field. You have to highlight individual achievements. You need to have first or last author papers, depending on what's the norm in your field. It's about competition. You are competing all the time. Me, myself, I'm from I'm an astronomer by training. It's actually quite an open field. There's a lot of data sharing, but still, this was a long time ago, but I think it's not so different. Still is don't share with others. This is how you're trained in research. It is, right? And you highlight positive results, it's negative, or you put the best out. But as a funder, yeah, that's not going to lead to quality research. And at the same time, yeah, I think you said that more about you also, of course, we have to value individuals. Of course, research is about individual achievement, but we need to align the incentives for collective success with the incentives for individual success. And open science will not become a norm if we don't give credit and recognition to the researchers who are doing it. I think at the break we're talking with a colleague here in the audience. We're talking about pockets of enthusiasm, and it really resonated when I worked in research institutions. Indeed, there's this pockets of enthusiasm. The researchers were really enthusiastic, but for open science to become the norm, we need that enthusiasm just spreads out, and it just becomes something you do. It's just how it is. It's not something you're enthusiastic about. And you know, having worked in scientific publishing for a long time, it's also not that researchers love to publish. Many people actually hate writing papers. It's just because it's what you do, right? Well, it's not that we want people to hate sharing data, but it has to become the thing, it's what you do. And this is a quote from something I wrote together with my colleague Hans de Jonge, and a lot of what I'm talking about here is not just my work, it's the work of a team at NVO. So before I'm now gonna talk about the wider context in the Netherlands. So we wrote this in 2020. In 2019, a white paper was published in the Netherlands, Room for Everyone's Talent. So this is a paper that brought together the entire knowledge sector in the Netherlands, the universities, the academic hospitals, the funders. So all of the knowledge sector got behind this movement to reform the system of incentives and rewards in the Netherlands. So the idea was to start a new system where that enabled the diversification of career paths, emphasized quality over quantity, and encouraged open science and high-quality academic leadership. I think we've heard about that today as well. In 2019, NVO signed the DORA Declaration, the Declaration on Research Assessment. We, at the same time, and the work I'm talking about now is from my colleague Casper Gossing-Mellenhorst. He started working on the implementation of DORA within NVO. We removed all references to journal impact factor and age index from call texts and application forms, and we also don't allow researchers to refer to these metrics. We started working with referees and committee members to explain what the impact was of signing DORA for our grant assessment procedure, and we introduced the narrative CV format, which we have heard about today, so I won't say a lot about it. But what else will say, the colleagues who have been involved in the implementation of the narrative CV, what they noticed was that, so one of the things we don't make, open science is not a criterion for evaluation, but in the narrative CV, we do ask researchers to indicate whether a resource, a given output is open or not. And also a broad definition of output is allowed, preprint, status, software, code, all of those are allowed. And what we noticed was because that's mentioned there, then the committee members started taking openness into account in their assessment. Some of them started seeing, this is not like what a modern researcher is. So this is encouraging. It's not a formal criterion, but by just mentioning it, people started paying attention. But in the open science team, we wanted to do more for open science because, the realization that we need to recognize and reward the researchers who are doing open science. It can't just be a hobby that you do because you are enthusiastic about it, although people still do that. So in 2020, we launched the Open Science Fund, a new instrument to stimulate open science by recognizing and rewarding researchers for their open science activities. And it's a new funding instrument, but it's basically modeled on the Welcome Open Research Fund. We just repurposed it to NVO. So again, for just credit where credit is due, and welcomes are always in the forefront with these things. So this instrument provides financial support to researchers with innovative projects specifically designed to stimulate open science. So it's not for projects, so the fund is not designed to open specific data sets or create new journals. It's really for projects that will encourage others to practice open science. We piloted an open science track record question and evaluation, so your open science track record is assessed. It was only 10% of the final grade because there was a lot of debate internally. Some people thought, but aren't we, some people didn't this is quite new. Some people may not have had the chance to develop an open science track record, so it was only 10%. But the applicants were quite positive about it. We also practiced a little bit what we preached. We're not transparent everywhere, but for this call for proposals, we shared proposals with special consent from the applicants. We asked applicants after the award, are you okay if the proposal is shared? So we shared, not everybody gave consent, but I think we were able to share information from around 60 proposals. And this is really quite new for NVO, and I think for a lot of funders, open sharing of proposals is a sort of a scary area. The lawyers were not happy, but we had good consent forms, so that was okay. And the fund was received with a lot of enthusiasm in the community. We received 167 applications. We are actually quite overwhelmed by the interest from the community. We only had 1 million euros to fund this round, so we're only able to fund 26. It was 1 million euros, and we were able to add another 250K from elsewhere because there was so much interest. So we were able to fund 26 projects, and they could ask up to 50,000 euro each. And we now have budget to run a second call for proposals, which we're hoping to open sometime before the end of the year. We're struggling actually with capacity. So we're still trying to find capacity to run the call. Yeah, Sandra, you showed that triangle, right? The triangle from Brian Nosek about how to change culture. So one of the things we're doing to try to make it normative is also through a webinar series. We are showcasing the projects awarded an Open Science Fund grant, and we're trying to put the project leaders in the spotlight and present them as role models in open science. And to fight this perception, open science is bad for career advancement. Well, here are these 26 researchers, where actually most of them are actually are full professors or on the tenure track. So they're doing well in their careers, and they're doing a really incredible open science, really exciting open science projects. So it doesn't need to mean that it's not bad for your career. And at the same time, we are providing the community with examples, with ideas, and hopefully excite people about open science. I mean, not that you have to attend the event, but this is our next seminar, and we've covered open access journals, we covered software, we've covered open tools for data visualization. The next, we've done interoperable research. The next one is on facilitating the sharing and reuse of qualitative data, which is a challenging area of data sharing. And if you're interested to see what these projects are about, the recordings are available on our website. So this is this is how we are trying to change research culture around open science, by providing funding, by giving examples to the community, and highlighting the work of the researchers who are really at the forefront of open science. They are still the pockets of enthusiasm, but we're trying to spread the enthusiasm. Changing gears a little bit, we have a new strategy, 2 minutes. Thank you. So we have a new strategy. This translates actually, wetenschap werkt translates to research works. That's the title of our new strategy for the next few years. I just wanted to say that healthy research culture is one of the building blocks in our strategy for 2023-2026. So we are doing a lot more than just open science. We are going to work on a culture that prioritizes collaboration, respect, safety, and mutual trust, and in which scientific integrity and open science are a given. We will continue to work on open science to take the lead by using instruments, grant conditions, providing financial support, and recognizing and rewarding researchers who put open science into practice. And I'll just finish. So we're still working on this. I'll just finish with something I saw on Twitter yesterday, where it's a fantastic example. You probably cannot see it very well there, but this is an example how. So we talk about data management plans, and we require data management plans, but here this institution is actually asking for the plan and for the track record of sharing. So they're asking, how do you plan to share your data or software, and what's your track record of sharing? I thought this is really exciting, and I'm hoping, well, we might be able to do something like this in the next period at NVO. I don't know, it's just something I saw on Twitter yesterday, but I found it quite exciting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. Sorry, we're a tiny bit delayed after coffee, but it'll be nice to take maybe 2 questions if possible, if they're quick, and then we can get on to the next panel discussion. So 2 questions if possible.
Thanks very much. Just a quick, Jill Marmelstein, Trinity College, Dublin. I just had a quick question. First of all, I wanted to applaud you for making our applications open access in themselves, but just as a quick comment, the US agencies, because they're taxpayers' money, they're generally open access. You can actually request a freedom of information to access a particular application. But I just wanted to know, just going back to the review process, who reviews the reviewers? Because we've had a couple of incidences, because obviously open access is great, but there is a willingness, I suppose, a willingness to change, but there's also a resistance to change. And we've had recently a couple of applicants complete a narrative CV, but the reviewer has said, despite being educated, where are the high impact journals in this CV? And I'm just wondering, do you have a review of reviewers, or who's policing the police?
Well, I have to say, so I don't work on the narrative CV, and it's the work of other colleagues, but I know, we do a lot of work with the community, but it's hard, right? Because it's also hard, maybe some people say, because you can access, even if we say to the researchers or to the reviewers, you cannot use journal impact factor or H index, they can still go and check, right? And you don't know. And this is the kind of, I'm talking from the top-down approach, right? But still, as a funder, it's not like we can just do whatever we please, because there's a lot of pushback from the community. And indeed, in the Netherlands, there have been letters, there have been people saying, no, we love, well, I don't know if they say we love, but there's people fighting for the use of the H index and the use of the journal impact factor. So it's not about policing the reviewers, it's really, we have to work together that at some point we all agree on this, but and not everybody is changing at the same speed, I must say. So I'm not sure we are reviewing the reviewers, but we are doing a lot of work well, I don't know if persuade is the right word, but but also let's not forget that reviewers and applicants are the same group of people, right? I don't think we are like policing, but we are working together. And I think what you said, Sandra, communication, lots of conversations.
Okay, thanks very much. Maura has one quick question, and then we can move on to the panel discussion. Yeah, so Maura's here. Sorry, that's all we have time for.
Okay, so actually it was kind of for you, Sandra, but I think it would also apply to you. The open access publishing agreements, I was just wondering, in those, who retains the copyright? But more importantly, how does this line up with Plan S, which is talking about immediate and open access? You mentioned, after the publisher kind of criteria, then they can go into repositories. So that conflicts a little with Plan S. So for both of you, where does Plan S sit in all of this?
Well, we are members of Coalition S and have implemented Plan S. But I don't work on that area, so. But yeah, when I talked about the open access requirements, they are Plan S requirements, which also lots of conversations with the community, because there was a lot of fear and perhaps misunderstandings even.
Maura, it's a really good question, and I can't answer all the details. So the Plan S is powerful, so being instructed to publish immediately is really powerful, I think. Then you can say our funder, I hope I have this right, our funder you retain the rights and you're acting on the funder's instruction. The open access publishing agreement shouldn't restrict that in any way. It's just a mechanism to publish openly. The institutional repository, sometimes funders' embargoes might delay you putting it into an institutional repository, but the open access publishing and the directive from the funder, that's the most powerful way, I think. Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'd like to say thank you to our speakers and thank you to the audience for your engaging questions. Thank you very much.